Top 10 werewolf movies that are criminally underrated. The werewolves have been a significant part of the horror genre for as long as we can remember. We have gotten some extraordinarily good cinema around these mysterious beasts. The thing with werewolf movies is that the concept has not been overexploited when compared to zombies or slasher movies. There is always a good werewolf movie now and then to stir things up and reinstate our love for those lycanthropes. From love stories featuring werewolves to their portrayal as devilish characters, the films have explored all possible angles. Today, we are going to throw some light on werewolf movies that we feel are criminally underrated. Sometimes the essence simply does not catch up with the audience for various reasons, but these movies ought to be checked out. So grab your popcorn and let's begin.
We need to stop this right now, please.
Where? 2014. Imagine being a defense attorney for a man accused of murder who is actually a werewolf. Well, this is only the tip of the iceberg. Kate is an expatriate attorney and represents Talon, the man accused of violent murders. She is in disbelief that he could do something like that, but later, during a medical checkup, Talon shows his monstrous side by killing pretty much everyone in the room. What follows is a marvelous story that unravels a legendary mystery behind Talon being a werewolf. The special effects are intelligently used, and the direction of William Brent Bell leaves nothing to complain. It is a pity that this movie is not as popular as it should be. From gripping storylines to the acting performances of A.J. Cook, Simon Quarterman, and Brian Scott O'Connor, the movie is an absolute treat for the viewers.
Hands getting wet yet?
Wolfen, 1981. This movie was directed by Michael Wadley, who is known for his exceptional documentary Woodstock Festival. Before Wolfen, Michael didn't have any experience with horror movies, but his expertise behind the camera can be seen in this werewolf flick that was way ahead of its time. This film doesn't have any epic transformation scenes or groundbreaking special effects, as it relies entirely on its storytelling. This movie uses real wolves in such a way that it will blow your mind. New York's representation in this film will send a chill down your spine. It's hypnotizing in some ways. We are not saying this film doesn't have horror vibes, but the perspective through which we see werewolves in this film is exceptional. In this stunning movie, the narrative develops when a cop is assigned to solve some unnatural, brutal murders. He soon realizes that there is more to it than what meets the eye as he experiences involvement of Native American mysticism and lycanthropes. Silver Bullet, 1985. The premise of Silver Bullet borders on an eerie storyline where some brutal murders rock a rural town. As a reaction, when the residents set up vigilante groups to catch the killer, more death follows. And, this time, the victims are the vigilantes themselves. There is a lot of brutality and gore in this movie, which was a common trope in the 80s horror movies. The fight back is led by a disabled individual, Marty, whose customized wheelchair is called Silver Bullet. Despite the horror element, there is a generous dose of humor to lighten the mood that sets the movie apart from other werewolf films. The cinematography by Armando Nanuzzi steals the show, and so does the acting performances delivered by the cast. Everett McGill in particular, who plays the role of the Reverend.
Get up! Come on, get up!
Ginger Snaps, 2002. Ginger Snaps is a Canadian movie that enjoys a cult following across the globe and has two more decent sequels after this. The story dwells on the dilemma and plight of a girl who desperately tries to save her sister after the latter is attacked by a werewolf and becomes one. The movie infuses a robust emotional quotient in the narrative, and the struggle of the loving sister does bring about heavy moments. The performance of the actors, Emily Perkins and Catherine Isabel as teenagers, is remarkable and helps to hold the story together. The script is written with finesse, special effects enthralling, and the gripping fight scenes make this movie a perfect composition. The sequels are also good, but the franchise owners have done a horrible job in promoting the content. Ginger Snaps could have been a massive theatrical hit if the release strategy and the marketing was handled with professionalism. Unfortunately, the only way this movie made its way to America was through word of mouth. The Howling, 1981. There have been countless sequels to this film, but the one that shines the most is the original Howling. The creepiness of this movie derives from the absurd plotline and the several moments of scare that are sure to make you jump in your seat. A prominent journalist helps the police capture a serial killer, but the trauma causes her mental troubles. She then goes to rest in a colony along with her husband, but her problems are far from over because all the inhabitants of the settlement actually werewolves. This ensures several moments of flesh-ripping violence and fantastic werewolf transformation scene. Joe Dante does a great job with his cast, and the fast-paced narrative leaves nothing to complain about. In the acting department, the likes of Dee Wallace, Belinda Balaski, and Dennis Dugan ensure that there are no shortcomings. Dog Soldiers, 2002. This film is a fantastic piece of cinema that is created on a shoestring budget. It's incredible because it's simple. A group of soldiers stumble upon a special ops unit that has been massacred in the forest. There is just one survivor, and when the attackers come back, a zoologist reveals that the attackers are werewolves. The nail-biting suspense over the fate of the soldiers is what makes this movie a thrilling watch. The likes of Sean Pertwee, Emma Clearsby, and Liam Cunningham ensure that the characters are brought to life with their spectacular acting skills. You might find better special effects for such films, but seldom will you get such a complete script. Miss this movie at your own peril because this is a real gem from the closet of werewolf movies. Howl, 2015. Howl thrills and fascinates by mixing the supernatural with qualities of a perfect thriller. The story unfolds as a train goes through the countryside and hits a deer on the tracks. When the driver goes to remove the remains from the train tracks, he is attacked by a monstrous werewolf. Soon, the werewolf comes back to attack the remaining passengers on the train. And how long can they fend it off with all forms of communication broken? This movie is an absolute nail-biter as you anticipate the fate of these people. The director, Paul Hyatt, does a fabulous job, and his cause is helped by beautiful cinematography. Although it is a low-budget movie, there were no compromises on the special effects that stand out and add to the brilliance of this film.
You stupid bitch!
Bad Moon, 1996. The story revolves around a man who comes back from Nepal to live with his sister. She has a German shepherd that identifies him to be a werewolf. By the end of the movie, you will fall in love with the dog, who is known as Thor. The film is a hidden gem for people who are werewolf movie enthusiasts. Even though it appears like a low-budget affair, the shortcomings are compensated by well-thought-out storytelling. Throughout the film, you are always rooting for the dog and concerned about the fate of his family. The director, Eric Red, leaves no stone unturned in delivering an engaging horror flick. And the actors, like Michael Parr and Mariel Hemingway, do justice to their roles. The Beast Within, 1982. When the husband goes away to find help when their car breaks down in the middle of nowhere, the wife is raped by a horrific creature. The rape gets her pregnant, and she gives birth to a child named Michael. After 17 years, Michael develops an illness, which has a connection to the werewolves. The beast within is different from conventional werewolf horror flicks in many ways, and we warn you that it has a lot of plot holes. Big enough to drive a truck through them if you start ripping them apart. But if you just silence that investigative area of your mind, you will experience a fantastic transformational horror that's a near classic. The main characters, played by Ronnie Cox, Bebe Bursch, and Paul Clemens, put up quite a show, and a brilliant script complements their performance. The eerie background score adds to the charm of this film.